So in our previous video, we put the floor in. So now we have a terrazzo floor, and let's go look at our camera view of that space. Okay, and you don't see anything. You don't see the concrete pattern anymore. You won't see anything until you render. This is just a hidden line. If we do a shaded version, it'll show us, kind of whether it's gray or in kind of grays, or you can see the brick right there. It's shaded. That's what we did on the elevations. Here, if we go realistic, okay, it'll do a little bit of rendering, okay, kind of give us a little feel for the condition, but we won't see. You can see a little bit of pattern, and you may not on the video, but there's a little pattern there, terrazzo pattern. To really get that terrazzo to stand out, we would have to go in and do a ray trace. Okay, and this is going to take a while, so I'm going to pause this. And then come back as soon as it's rendered. Okay, we're back, and you can see we can't see anything, and that's because I don't have any lighting set up, and Ray Trace uses lighting conditions to determine how this should be lit and shaded. We can very subtly see some elements, so it doesn't do any good to Ray Trace this, and it takes time every time you change the view or review the view. So realistic is okay. That'll give you some kind of idea about what's going on and map your patterns. But for practical purposes, just a hidden line or shaded view for working purposes works kind of best. So with that said, let's go in. If we look at our elevation, let's look at, let's see, C, D, let's look at A. Yeah. Okay, here's our window wall. Here's our glass. The window wall is 10 foot 8 inches tall. I'm pretty sure. Save project. Project saved. If we measure here, yeah, 10 foot 8 inches. So we probably want our ceiling to be above that. And we've got enough room underneath this girder. Probably, let's take another look here. Okay. The girder is right at 13 foot 2 inches. So if we go up to 12 feet, we'll have a foot underneath that. That will probably be enough. If it's not, we can always come and lower the ceiling or whatever. But I'd like to get the ceiling as tall as I can. So we're going to assume 12 feet for our ceiling. And then let's go back to our finished floor. Okay. Now, you may have wondered why there are structural plan views, okay, because they're set up to show just structure, okay, and then there are floor plan views, like the one we're using right here, that are used to just show the floor and the layout of a typical floor from an architectural point of view, and from our designer's point of view, let's put it that way, and then you'll see ceiling plans, okay? And you'll see here's a level 1 ceiling plan. And what that is what is called a reflected ceiling plan. And what a reflected ceiling plan is it's as if we're looking down, okay? As if we're looking down at the floor, and the floor was a mirror. And the mirror is showing us what we're seeing above our head as we're looking down. And so basically what we're seeing right here are some beams. There's a girder. Let's go in here and go from coarse to fine just to show you. Okay, so there's our girder right there. There's our beam. There's a beam. Okay, and so what we're seeing is the ceiling looking down at the floor. Okay, and that doesn't make any sense, but it does, and in some ways it makes it a little bit easier to work. So the other thing you need to realize about that view is that its view range is a little different. Okay, if we go in and we edit the view range, there's a couple of things you're going to see. Okay, first of all, the top of the view range is the level 2. Okay, the finished floor in level 2, that level there, which is offset of 0. And then the view depth is also level 2. Okay, because we're reversing our view. It's the reverse of a floor plan. And then you'll notice a cut plane is at 7 foot 6 inches. Okay, and notice this is grayed out, but it's 7 foot 6 inches up from level 1 finished floor. Okay, and if we look at our let's cancel out on that real quick and then look at our community room here. Okay, so here's our community room. We got this beam about girder about 1/3 of the way through. But 7 foot 6 inches, this window and this door window combination are 10 foot 8 inches. So 7 foot 6 inches up from the floor cuts through those surfaces. But I want you to notice that there's no door right here. Okay, there's no door on any of these. And because all those doors are interior doors at 7 feet tall. Okay, and so our 7 foot 6 inches cuts 6 inches above the doors. Now, if we want to include those, what we'd have to do is come in here and make sure that this is set not at 7 foot 6 inches, but something below 7 foot. Okay, so I'm going to 6 foot 8 inches and apply that and say okay. And now we see all of our doors. Okay, and that can be advantageous or or not, depending on whether you need it. I want to know that those doors are there, okay, and where they're located in the room as I begin to set up this ceiling, okay. So with that done, then I'm going to go back and put this back on course so that all that visual noise is gone. And so right here is where we're going to put that ceiling in. And to do that, we're going to go into architecture again. We're going to go into ceilings, and ceilings are considered an architectural element because they're no structure. And you'll see a reflected ceiling plan. It'll show you kind of a little video on what we're going to do. So we're going to select an area and put an ACT grid in it. And then we're going to make some adjustments if we need to. So let's do that really quick because it's really fast. Ceiling, okay. Then let's go into ceiling here, and we're going to see 3 types that are default. Okay, there's 4 types. A basic ceiling, which is, generic, not really basic. Okay, and then your 2x2 ACT and a 2x4 ACT. I talked about ACT, acoustical ceiling tile, right? ACT. Let's look at acoustical ceiling tile real quickly. This is a 2x2 acoustical ceiling tile, and once again, it's the carpet of ceilings. Okay, everybody puts it in because it's inexpensive. It's actually solves a lot of problems and issues having to do with acoustics and putting in lights and putting in fixtures, and you have to repair it. I mean, once again, it's the default for most commercial buildings. All you have to do is look up and you'll see them. The other is a 4x2. Of course, that means it's 2 foot wide but 4 foot long. Okay, I did a search here, and you can see right here, this is a 4x2 right here. These are 2x2s. Why they came up, but I don't know. That's of course a 4x2 right there. 2x2. There's a 4x2. Okay, so there's a 4x, and he's setting up a grid. You can see he's setting up the struts for a 4x2 panel there. So what we're going to do is a 2x2. And so I'm going to go back and you'll notice that it has 2 defaults: automatic ceiling, okay, where you just go in as it shows here in the little video and you select a room, and then it goes out and select those room boundaries. Remember when you were drawing things and it said, do you want to set this as a room boundary? Well, what you do when you do that, you create the boundaries for certain actions like this. The other is that we can go in and sketch this if we wanted to. But since we're going to do the whole space, we're not going to sketch it. The other thing I want to check before I go much further, okay, I'm going to escape out of this function and do a couple of measurements. I hit the escape key to do that. I'm going to measure from here to here, okay, and that's 22 feet, almost 23 feet. That means if I do a 2x2, I'm going to have either an extra foot on one side or an extra 6 inches, okay, if I want to center it. Let's take a measurement across the other direction, get an idea here, okay, and that is, well, for all practical purposes, that's 22 feet, okay. The difference we can make up in trim. So we've got an even 11 panels across and 11 and a half panels in this direction. And so we'll just keep that in mind as we go to adjust this. So let's go back, architecture, okay, ceilings, and we're just going to select a standard old 2x2. You'll notice here's gypsum board on a metal stud. Let me real quickly look at that, okay. Let's go into edit type so you can kind of see here. And so here's our metal stud, 3 5/8 inches, and then on the bottom of that metal stud is a 5/8 inch gypsum board, and of course it would be taped, textured, and painted, or covered with some kind of material. It could have some other finish besides painting. And once again, this won't show us all the studs, okay, or the grid or anything like that. If we wanted that, we'd have to go in and download a Rivet system to do that. This is just going to create us a kind of like a floor, okay. But nonetheless, we want to put in an ACT. So I'm going to go back here, select my 2x2 ACT, and I got it on automatic ceiling. And so you'll see right now when I do that, it's going out and it's selecting the boundaries for me. Now, one thing it's doing is it's going to assume that we're going to trim out here, right? So and go all the way to that window, okay, which is okay, and then all the way there, all the way there. So I'm going to select that, and we can see. And what it did is it did the automatic thing, right? It equaled out any volume that we had left over. So it made this side equal to this side. Okay, you'll notice that these are all cut. Now, if we don't want that, there's ways in which we can modify it. We can move this around. I'm not going to get into it. The other thing is I should have checked real quick to make sure when I put this in. Let's tab here. Okay. And of course, now you'll notice that we can't see those beams and everything. There they are in gray, and it's because they're being covered up. But you'll notice that level 1 offset was set to 12 feet, and I think I did that previously. I don't think that's the default, but we should have set that first before we did this. So in your start file, it'll probably already be set to level 12 feet. Let's take a real close look at. So there's our ceiling, and of course it doesn't have the hanging wires and all that kind of stuff, and we don't need that at this point. That would be in another level of detail, but you can see our ceiling. Let's go in and look at our camera view, and so now we got our 2x2 ceiling in there. And may not be the prettiest thing in the world, but it is functional, and I'll show you later on how to come back in and insert some lights and stuff like that in another video. So now we have the floor and we have a ceiling. So the next thing I think we're going to do is put in the cabinetry over here that we want in an interior wall. So in our next video, that's what we're going to do.